Good evening. Happy Thursday, and welcome to the Man Cave. Let's see here. Brother Jeff, Orlando. Welcome aboard, Jeff, and Tanya from the great north upstairs running the show. Glad y'all could
From
be
the
with us tonight.
executive offices.
From the suites, from the
The
executive
ivory
suite.
tower.
Yes. All right. It's Thursday. It's one of my favorite nights of the week these days. First things first, before I forget it, we are not having a live stream next week. We will uh, be returning 2 weeks out. I've got some business to attend to on Thursday next week that will uh, preclude this. Eric, glad you could make it with us. Russ, excellent. I'm getting ready to have a drink. If you're having a drink with us tonight, let me know what you're having and where. Jeff, are you having a drink with us tonight? I think you said you had the Weller out. Oh boy, that's one I haven't had my hands on yet.
It's good.
Tanya made a smoothie because I heard the blender running upstairs.
Yep.
Anthony got some Woodford Reserve. I'm gonna have tonight. I'm gonna have some of this Larceny Barrel Proof, and I want to talk briefly about Larceny. I know some of you that are here with us don't do bourbon and or whiskey or whatnot. You may be wine or beer, and that's all great. But if you ever decide you want to get in to the bourbon game, I want to talk a little bit about Larceny and why I think Larceny is an excellent place to start in that world. Hunter with us.
Oh, and clearly celebrating Georgia's.
Yeah.
But that's not a game to celebrate. Not really. I mean,
Oh,
they
I
had no
don't know
business
about
being in that
that.
game.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
This larceny is dangerous, and I'm going to talk about that too. But if you decide, at some point that you want to get into the bourbon game and start learning to taste bourbon and whiskey, I'll tell you the same thing. I've mentioned this before, and I've only been into this for a couple of years now. Coming up, I guess it's been close to 2 years. Tanya and I went to the Jack Daniel's distillery, and we took a tour. And at the end of the tour, we had a tasting with a very experienced taster, and he explained a lot of this process. And he says, for those of you who are not used to tasting whiskey and bourbon and whatnot, the way to do it is to start out with very small amounts, like a half an ounce, and do it daily. Just take it into and don't buy something expensive when you're starting out. Just like the Jack Daniel's Old Number 7 is a perfect starter. Or anything that's in the 80 to 90 proof range is a good starting point. And just take a little tiny bit of that and bring it into your mouth and hold it under your tongue, swirl it around in your mouth until the alcohol sting from that just vanishes, because it'll go away, and then you'll explode with the flavors that are behind the alcohol in these things. But the Larceny, the reason I wanted to talk briefly about Larceny, this is the standard Larceny. This stuff, I guess, is a little more expensive than Jack Daniel's. I checked when I went to the liquor shop today. This is $30. But one of the things that separates Larceny from the rest of the bourbon world is it's called a wheated bourbon. The mash bill for Larceny has wheat in it, where your typical bourbon and whiskey are made from 3 different grains. They're made from corn, rye, and malted barley. Those are the 3 primary, or the 3 grains that you'll find in most whiskey and bourbon. And what changes the flavors based on that's the percentages of each that are found in your bourbons and whiskeys. Corn brings the sweetness. Quinn, glad you could make it with us tonight from down in New Zealand. All right. Corn brings the sweetness. Rye brings a spiciness, a little bit of vibrance, a cinnamon or a peppery flavor. And malted barley brings an earthiness to these things. And these wheated bourbons, they've taken the rye out, which takes the spicy element of it out, and they've replaced it with wheat, which brings an additional. It's kind of a blend of sweetness and earthiness with the wheat. And the wheated bourbons I have found in my limited experience in this field are very easy drinkers for the most part. Uh, and this Larceny is particularly easy. And one of the reasons Larceny seems to be a particularly smooth choice is because it has a larger percentage of wheat. When I was looking at their mash bill, I think it was 80% corn. It was 16% wheat, which would leave 4%, I guess, for the malted barley. And your typical wheated bourbons, like another example of a common wheated bourbon is Maker's Mark, which is something everybody's probably seen around. It's like 80% corn, 12% malted barley, and 8% or 12% wheat and 8% malted barley. The Larceny has a higher percentage of wheat, and it really does make it a super smooth drinker. If any of you guys ever tried Larceny, if you've tried Larceny before, let me know. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about it. Or if you've tried Maker's Mark, those are two wheated bourbons right off the top of my head. And of course, if you've had Weller, Jeff's having Weller tonight, and Weller's a wheated bourbon. And
it's a good bourbon.
Yeah. The Weller, Jeff's got some of that Weller 107, that's going to be really nice. The standard Larceny here is 92 proof. That's their base offering. And this is a barrel proof bottle, and this particular batch is at 124.4 on that batch. But the interesting thing is both of these, even though this one's significantly higher in alcohol than this one, they are the same recipe. The only difference is that this bottle has come straight out of, I don't know if you can see the color differences here or not, probably not in this light. The barrel proof one's a little darker, but they're the exact same recipe, and they're aged for the exact same periods of time. Yeah, Luca, Larceny would be a good starting point, and glad you could make it with us. Luca's just getting into bourbon, and we've been talking some about it, but I asked him yesterday. He has some Larceny, so it's a really nice starting point. But those two bourbons are the same. The barrel proof one is just not diluted, and the 92 proof is diluted. And then on up the chain is this. This is what's called bottled in bond. And anytime you see one that's listed as bottled in bond, it's going to be 100 proof. But that's the 17-year-old bottle. That one's been aged for 17 years prior to going in the bottle. That's kind of one of my prize bottles, and I haven't had a glass of that in a while. That one's going to be on the extremely special occasion shelf. I don't want to ever be out of that one, and I'll likely never have another opportunity to get it. So, but anyway, I wanted to talk briefly about Larceny, because like I said, if you're a beginner and want to get started, Larceny is a beautiful place to do it. One other particular note about this Larceny Barrel Proof, at 124 proof, with this and with some of the other barrel proof bourbons, you'll typically have a lot of alcohol sting. There's a lot of it. And the worst one that I've got is the Jack Daniel's Barrel Proof. It's got a really heavy alcohol sting to it, but this one, This barrel proof Larceny is scary at how little alcohol sting that stuff has at 124 proof. Logan, glad you could make it with us tonight at 2XO. I don't even know if I know what that is.
I was going to ask, what is that?
So, but this barrel proof Larceny has less of an alcohol bite to it than typical 100 proofs that I have on the shelf behind me here. It's really, that's why I say it's dangerous. That one will get into you real quick, and you won't realize it until you've gone a little too far with it.
And then it stumps you.
Yeah, 124 proof is one that's going to help you sleep nicely that night for sure. So, all right.
That is if you can find your bed.
Yeah. Tanya, we'll bring you back here in just a little bit. All right. Jeff, you did some cooking this week.
Well, it's the last 2 weeks, actually.
Yeah. Okay, the Barbecue Bandit's asking, what's the cost difference in the barrel? I'm assuming barrel proof. That the standard Larceny blend is a $30 bottle, and I can't remember exactly what I paid for this barrel proof, but it was I'm gonna say it was between 60 and 70. It was twice as much at a minimum for the barrel proof. It's I don't remember exactly what I paid for that because I've had that one for a while now. I just haven't drank a lot of it. I've been skipping over it because it's another one that I don't ever want to be out of, and it doesn't come my way very often either. But the barrel proof stuff that I buy in general is $60 to $70 a bottle on average. The other barrel proof, I don't think they actually even call it barrel proof. The other one that I keep on hand, I don't even know if we can see it up here behind me. We can't. Is I keep the Knob Creek. I keep one on hand called Knob Creek Single Barrel Reserve. They don't call it barrel proof, but it's 120 proof, so it's up there close to whatever their barrel proof might be. And it's $69, I think, for a bottle. The Jack Daniels single barrel proof is right. It's $70 or so. Yeah, George, you're going to have a hard time with that. I don't have anything against tequila. I just I was talking with some of my friends here the other night about expanding my tasting horizons into, and I was thinking about maybe, since I like sweet, I was thinking about maybe experimenting in the rum world. So I don't know. I may just stick with bourbon and whiskey for a while because I still think I have a long way to go. Jeff, do you have any other spirits that you really like besides bourbon and whiskey?
I like Caribbean rum. That's good.
The only Caribbean rum I think I've ever had. Well, I don't know what's Caribbean and not. And I'm trying to remember the name of that rum that's made in the Bahamas. Uh, I can't remember what it was called, but uh, I don't know if Tanya remembers that stuff either. But uh, my limited experience with rum is Bacardi and Myers and Captain Morgan, Blackbeard country. Uh, well, I guess if you consider the North Carolina coast Blackbeard country, yeah, Tanya's saying yes, we are. So, uh, rum is
Are you talking about the John Watley's?
no, it's some big box brand that's made in the Bahamas. I can't remember what it was called. It's been so long since I've seen it, but
John Watley is the big one.
I don't know what I don't know good rum from bad rum. And I had a look at the rum shelf when I was in the liquor store earlier today, and I didn't see anything that struck my fancy as something I might want to try. I need to find some people that are in tune with the rum world to tell me where I need to start on that. So if you know about rum and know what a good quality starter rum would be, send that my way. Let me know what it is. Yeah, Quinn, Eagle Rare. That's that's
That's good
that's
stuff.
awesome stuff. It's I love Eagle Rare. I've got some. I've got a good bit actually, and maybe we'll have Eagle Rare again sometime soon. I think Eagle Rare is one of Buffalo Trace's. I've got I've got three huge favorites that come from Buffalo Trace, and one of them is Eagle Rare. The other one is Elmer T. Lee, and then I like the Colonel E. H. Taylor, and I've not had the opportunity to have E. H. Taylor single barrel. Um, I've just had the small batch. I had my first taste of George T. Stagg, or actually not the George T. Stagg. I had what's just called Stagg or Stagg Junior recently, and it was incredible as well. But I've never been able to buy a bottle of that. Uh, Stagg is the barrel proof Eagle Rare, Jeff. It's the barrel proof version of the Eagle Rare of that. You got the benchmark. The This line starts at benchmark, uh, Buffalo Trace, Eagle Rare, E.H. Taylor, and Stag come out of that mash bill. And there's several variations of some of those. Captain Morgan Deluxe. Yeah, okay. Well, I might try some of that. So anyway, enough about that. Cheers again. Oh, I got to make sure that doesn't evaporate while I'm sitting here.
Should be a crime against it.
Yeah, Honorog doesn't like anything that costs over $40 a bottle. So, Honorog, you should try this Larceny. It's 30. The 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 small batch version of it's $30. But I like and Eagle Rare is $40 when I find it. That's the going price for it here. Uh, I have I like stuff that's $40. The one I picked up today, I picked up another bottle of the Jack Daniel's Bonded. That's $40. I really like that one. So anyway, let me get some pictures up here. Uh,
I hear the train.
yeah, we got a railroad track a couple hundred yards behind us over here, and there's one, bro. What are we looking at here, Jeff?
Okay, I am in the middle of making pork bombs. For
Yeah.
those of you who don't know, that's where you take a pork butt, you cut it down into softball size pieces, season it up real good. And the one thing that I like about this method is it gives you more surface area to put your seasoning on and whatnot. So I think it just adds to the flavor on top of the method in which you're going to do it.
Maybe it would be a candidate for charred and scruffed,
Could be.
even at that level. Let's see what's next in the list here. Okay, this is the pork bombs going into the wrap phase.
Right. Whenever they get to be usually 3 hours will get it in between 130 and 150 mark. You got a pretty decent bark on them. I'll wrap them at that point, double wrapped in cellophane, saran wrap, whatever you want to call it, and then put into aluminum trays and covered with aluminum foil. All this is done on. I try to keep my smoker right at 200, which is very easy to do with the
Yep.
mixing.
I remember when Chef Eric first taught me about this method and first started bringing. Chef Eric was the first person I saw do this.
Yep.
I don't know if Chef invented it or not, but he was definitely the first person I saw do this. And one of the things that people freak out about is wrapping that stuff in plastic and keeping the plastic from melting. What do you think about that, Jeff?
If you keep it at 200 degrees, even up to don't go over 230.
Yeah.
It's not gonna melt. I mean, in the restaurant business, when we would heat up like big things of green beans and whatnot, we put the cellophane over it, put the aluminum foil over it, throw it in the oven to heat it back up.
Right.
It never melted. I mean,
Al, welcome aboard. Glad to see you with us tonight.
can you melt it? Yes, if you get it too hot, going 200 to 230, you're not going to melt it.
Yeah. Tanya Star Al's comment. I want to come back and talk about him before the end of the show too. I want to introduce you guys to Al. He's another YouTuber that I met this week. So anyway, before Jeff, before we move on here, we were talking about temperature and keeping that plastic from melting. In the Kamado Joe world, which is where this was born, as far as I know, it's a little harder to run your grill at 200. And guys, if you ever want to try this technique, there's a method that I've used that will keep you from ever having to worry about melting that plastic. If you do what Jeff's done here and you wrap it up, you really got to wrap those things tight in multiple layers of cellophane. And if you put them in a pan here like Jeff's done, what I would do in the Kamado is I would double pan that. I would put two pans there, and I would also probably dump 2 cups of water into that pan, and then just foil the top of it and keep the foil as tightly crimped around the edges of that as you can. And the water inside that pan will keep the temperature in that pan from getting up above 212, 215 in a worst case scenario. And that will stay well under the 230 or 235 or whatever the temperature is at which that cellophane will melt. And you can, in your Kamado, you can do that. And if your Kamado's ambient temperature's at 250 or even 275, it's still only going to be 215 or less inside that pan.
Yep.
So that's something you can keep in mind. And it's not going to present problems. You're not going to have to worry about melting that plastic, and you're going to get a phenomenal result in the end. So looks like you're shredding those things.
Yeah, I think the next picture is the little video that I show opening up one. Yeah, play that little video. I mean, this stuff here, watch how this it just falls apart.
Right. Now, yeah, it does come apart. Now, yeah, that's crazy. Let me stop right there for a minute. Did you ever talk to Eric, Jeff, about how he did these things in his restaurant?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, one of the things he did was when he would unwrap those things, he would press them lightly onto a hot griddle and give it a sear on one side, and then he would flip it and serve it sear side up on top of, I can't remember if he was serving it on rice or he was serving it on top of something else with the sweet sauce.
He's usually serving on top of the rice with his bourbon sauce.
Right, his cherry bourbon.
Yep. Which I have the recipe for, but it makes half a gallon of the stuff.
If you think about it, send me that, because he sent me that at one point, and I don't know what I've done with it, and I'd like to look at it again, and I can definitely scale it down. But yeah, at the time, all of Eric's recipes were restaurant quantity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime you get a recipe from Eric, it was a copy of something that was scribbled in a notebook, and for that sauce, he's probably making 2 gallons of it or something. But that bourbon, that cherry bourbon sauce, he was making that the day I met him at that trade show in Atlanta, or he was making pork bombs, and we were doing that. So yeah, those things are crazy. We got a brisket.
Got a brisket there. This is a funny brisket. I was over at Costco, and this was a right at 10-pound brisket, which is a small brisket. Never done a 10-pound one, but I like the shape of it. As you can see, it's nice and thick in the flat. It had very little point on it,
Right.
The point was probably maybe 3/4 of an inch thick. It's the smallest point I've ever seen on a brisket,
Yeah.
but it came out really nice.
What's next here? This looks like
I've got it
you
seasoned
steep.
up and
Okay.
I
You're
seasoned it
doing
up and I put it in the vacuum seal bag and put it in the refrigerator overnight.
Yeah. Guys, I can't stress to you how worthwhile it is to season your meat the day
Definitely.
before you're ready to cook it.
Even if you don't have a vacuum sealer, season it up,
Yeah.
throw it on the pan, cover it with
Mhm.
saran wrap, and
It doesn't
let
have to
it.
be vacuum sealed at all.
No,
Uh, if you don't even have a pan, you could just wrap it back up in saran wrap, throw it in the refrigerator, and just let it. You're doing basically a dry brine. And I think
yep,
when you can vacuum seal, I think it's advantageous to do it because it keeps the liquid that's pulled out of the meat pressed up against the meat, and it enhances that dry brining
definitely.
process. So uh, here we are on the bark.
Yep. Got
Yeah.
that just about ready to wrap that thing. The bark is just about set on that where I want it.
It's got some. I can see it's taking on some good color there.
Yep,
I want to talk about this. I saw this in this picture earlier. Jeff, you see here where this liquid's pooling?
yep.
This is something that Harry Sue was adamant about, and this is something I learned from Harry in his barbecue cooking class when I went to take it out in California quite a while back. Find a softball at Walmart or wherever. Get a softball and wrap that thing in aluminum foil and put it underneath that brisket where that point where the liquid's pooling becomes the high point, and it keeps liquid from pooling on the outside of the brisket, and it'll keep that from being a soft spot in the bark. That's kind of a pro tip that I learned from Harry. Or you could drape it over a rib rack and achieve the same effect. There's a lot of ways to do it. Just food for
Wrap a
thought.
brick.
Yeah, I don't like. I have tried the brick. I'm not as big a fan of the brick idea. When I did the brick, I use some of the oven bricks that I have out here, and it actually kept that oven brick
No,
doesn't conduct heat well enough, and I had a
mhm,
spot there in that brisket that didn't cook as well underneath that.
yep.
I think a rib rack actually might be the best solution because it won't interfere with the cooking on that. But here we goes. I'm guessing this is the point. Is this post foil?
Yeah, that's post foil.
Yep. And Jeff and I both have gotten to the point where we like to cook in pans, and the reason we both like to cook in pans, you can see in this pan, you don't want to let any of that get away from you.
No,
That liquid.
that's
The
gold
last,
right there.
the last brisket, I cooked a brisket for my sister and her husband uh, back around Christmas, and in fact, I just delivered that to her yesterday, and I feel real guilty about not getting that to her sooner. But I finished that brisket in a pan like this, and when I sliced her brisket up to package it in vacuum seal bags, I put a couple of tablespoons of that pan rendering back into each of those bags, so it's there when she reheats it. Uh,
And Dave, to answer your question, no, I cook on my Kamados just as much. We just don't show as many pictures of that. Uh, the mixing is my go-to low and slow. Uh, so as John will tell you, that's a phenomenal low and slow guy. You throw that thing at 200 degrees and
yep,
magic happens. I'm just going to put it like that. Magic
yep.
happens.
We have cracked the code of getting great barbecue off of pellet grills, and the the key to that's that 200 that long overnight ride at 200 degrees. And
12
Jeff
hours.
and I we're doing the same thing. I'm doing pork butts that way, and I'm doing briskets that way. I go well at 12 hours. Sometimes I come back at 12 hours after 200 degrees at 12 hours. My bark's still not exactly where I want it, but I still, at that point, I go ahead and ramp up to 300 degrees until my bark is
Yep.
where I want it. And then I wrap it from there and finish it up. But pellet grill, uh, I have changed my own idea of whether pellet grills are formidable or not. You do have to adapt your cooking method to get the most out of a pellet grill, but when you do that, the results are incredible. And I've been
But
cooking.
I'll also say, John, us cooking at 200 degrees, I think it's a lot more predictable as far as exactly when you can plan on having your stuff done.
Right. For my pork butts, I am always done in the 14 to 15 hour range. My
Hmm.
pork butts. Now I'm gonna qualify that by saying 9 to 10 pound pork butts work out this way. Smaller pork butts come off about an hour earlier, but
Yep.
9 to 10. I like to cook 10 pounders, and it's like clockwork. 14 to 15 hours is when
Yep.
I'm taking that off and putting it in the cooler to rest it, and it's like clockwork. They rarely ever go any longer than that. So here's a picture. You got a nice bark on that one, and
Yep.
this next picture tells the story pretty well. You know, when you get a slice off the flat that just doubles over your knife blade like that, you know you hit the tenderness point that you're looking for. And that one's got a beautiful smoke ring on it.
Yeah,
And
that's one of the things that bark produces. But there's that point that I was telling you about. It's not a big point. It was that was probably one of my better briskets right there. I mean, it came out really nice, moist, jiggly,
yeah,
um, good smoke ring, good smoke flavor.
that's awesome. But briskets, briskets are I guess at this time, briskets are back down to pre-pandemic pricing, pretty
Yeah,
much. Or they about $4, 3.80 to $4 a pound, unless you find
yeah.
it on sale somewhere. So,
Flats are ridiculously priced still, and I don't understand that.
well,
Why is the
flats are
flat?
always going to be more because there's extra processing that's gone into it. I don't like buying just the flat. The only time I would ever consider buying just the flat is if I'm gonna make pastrami, because I think we were talking earlier with Janice today. I do prefer making pastrami from the flat,
Oh,
and
definitely.
I don't want to put the points too good a piece of meat for me to make pastrami out of it. But uh,
But yeah, even still, John, you take a look at the price difference. It only takes me a good 5 minutes to yank that point off of a flat.
right,
Now, is that 5 minutes worth an additional $4 a pound? I don't
what I'm
think so.
wondering is why it takes you 5 minutes. You've got a visual line there. You should be able to run your knife in and out of that in 60 seconds, Jeff. I'm
Well,
disappointed.
well, that's true, but I'm talking about
Yeah,
cutting it and getting it cleaned up. You're talking 5 minutes total.
right. And
So
Richard,
that $4 a pound more for it is ridiculous.
right. I agree. And Richard, the choice or prime, I'm gonna in a nutshell, I'm gonna tell you prime is always the best option. But in my case, my Sam's Club sells prime and choice Angus beef. I can't tell the difference in the two, and I have
No.
never had a bad choice Angus beef brisket from Sam's Club. I don't think if I let my Costco membership lapse, I don't go to Costco anymore. But I don't think Costco sells anything but prime, do they, Jeff? Did they
No,
discontinue it?
uh, they still have choice, but I be perfectly honest with you. If I'm going to buy a brisket, I'm going to Sam's because I like the Black Angus. I think it's got better
Yeah,
marbling. It folds
it,
up better. That one that I got there, I mean, it's. I
I
just think
won't
it's a
buy
better
the
quality piece of
prime
meat.
at my Sam's Club. I don't know if all Sam's Clubs have the choice Angus beef or not. I don't know the answer to that, but I know mine does, and I will buy that over their prime every day. And
Yep.
also keep in mind that when you buy a prime brisket, it's prime in name, but you have to keep in mind that cattle are graded on the ribeye.
That's
They're not
right.
graded on the brisket. So that brisket may or may not be any better than a choice brisket. I do not buy select grade brisket, and I have seen select grade brisket at Walmart. Uh, I've never bought one of them, but they do have them there occasionally, and I don't ever buy select grade beef. So
The only meat I buy at Walmart is extra meaty pork ribs.
yes, those. those extra meaty baby back ribs from
Oh,
Walmart are the bomb.
John,
They're
you got to
good.
take that picture out of your preview. Man, that every time I
No,
see that, I want to go grab me a set of
now
ribs.
we got to qualify that, Jeff. You got to look for those racks that are 5 pounds or
5 pounds,
better.
absolutely.
Don't buy the extra meaty one that's only 3 pounds or 3.5 pounds.
Waste of
Dig
money.
through there until you find the big one. And if you don't find the big one, just wait until next time.
Or ask
Look,
them. Just
look
tell
for
them, hey,
the
go
big
in the
one.
back and find me, 2 5-pounders or better.
Yeah,
And they'll get them. They'll bring them out.
those 5 pound racks of baby backs down on the small bone end. That's a little bit of heaven down there when that brisket's
A
cooked.
little bit of heaven?
Yeah.
That's gold, buddy.
Yeah. Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about tonight is my cooking endeavor, my cooking project this week. I jumped in and did something I've never done before. Uh, Donair and Donair. Uh, I guess the best way to describe this simply is it is an Eastern Canadian gyro. And I did some research on this project before I got started. I wanted to know how these things were done, how the people that are in the Halifax, Nova Scotia area of Eastern Canada were doing this, because I wanted to try to do it to their standards for this first attempt at this. So this is and I've got a video. I made video on this that I'm going to edit and publish sometime tomorrow on the Man Cave Meals channel. And if you're interested, keep your eyes open for this. But what this is like gyro. It's a meat that you're going to put together that you can slice or shave, and you're going to serve it on a pita. But the process here is what's kind of unique about how these things are made. I started out this project with 2 pounds of 80% lean ground chuck. And that's what you see in my mixing bowl here. So here, this is where I probably deviated a bit from what the Eastern Canadians might consider uh, authentic. I'm a stickler when it comes to seasoning, and I really like to bring flavor. So what I've got here, let me see if I can remember what all I put in here based on looking at it. I've got some salt. I've got some Spanish paprika. I've got granulated garlic. I have a little bit of celery seed. I've got oregano. Or no, this middle one here is not celery seed. This middle one is freshly ground coriander. I've got a little oregano. Back here is the celery seed. I've got a little thyme, and there's a little bit of flour. There's just a small amount of flour that's added to this, and I don't really understand what role the flour plays, but this is something that I saw in multiple videos when I was watching not just people making Donair, but these were Canadians from the Nova Scotia area. I watched no less than 8 or 10 videos of people doing this, and also you can see I put a little Worcestershire sauce in there as well. So this meat was nicely seasoned. So in the next frame here, I've just dumped all of that seasoning into my meat, and we threw this guy on the mixer. Well, I just double clicked through that, and you work this with the paddle on your KitchenAid mixer until you think it can't be worked anymore. I ran this thing at a medium speed on my commercial KitchenAid for 6 or 7 minutes, and it was running fast enough with this ground beef that I was having to stand there and hold it to keep that thing from walking off my work table. You want to beat the crap out of this. This is not meatloaf. You do not want a light, fluffy texture on this. You want this to be dense in its finished state. So Andrew says the flour helps bind it. Okay, I can see where that might happen. We might actually get a little bit of gluten development during this mixing process here. So I did not. I'll show you what I did. I did not put this on the spit. So when this is done, this is what it looks like. And if you can see in that picture, you can see a stringy mess there. Those little strings that you can actually see there are some of the connective tissues in this meat. So you want to beat it until it's this consistency. And then there's some other things that happen. There's a lot of variation in what I saw the Canadians do when they made Donair at this point. Some of them put it in a loaf pan and just pressed it down as best they could, and then they were like poking in it with a syringe and pressing more. They were very adamant about trying to get all the air pockets out of it, which I don't know how big a deal that is, and I didn't spend a lot of time working on getting that out. What I did with mine was I set mine up on some saran wrap, or this is actually some of the commercial grade cellophane wrap, and I made a log that was, I guess, 10 inches long maybe, and rolled it up into a log and rolled it up really tight in this cellophane. And I put that guy in the refrigerator and let it have its fun with those herbs and spices overnight. So it got 12 or 14 hours in the fridge. The next thing that makes a Donair is this Donair sauce that they make. And my wife and I had a heated discussion about this. We'll get Tanya back. We'll talk to Tanya about this in a minute. She didn't think this sounded good, but this Donair sauce is a white sauce, and it's made from evaporated milk, sugar, garlic, and a little white distilled vinegar. Another variation of this is to use sweetened condensed milk instead of evaporated milk and sugar. I think whichever way you go, you're basically going to end up with the same thing. So to make this sauce, I put the evaporated milk and the sugar and the garlic in my mixer with the whisk attachment. And I whisked it until I was confident that I had all of the sugar dissolved. And then uh, this is another place in the Canadian videos that I watched where I saw a good bit of difference is in how much vinegar gets used. And the vinegar, I think, is serving two purposes in this sauce. Number one, it's backing off a little bit of the sweetness. It's giving some acidity balance to some of the sweetness, but it is also thickening this sauce. This sauce without the vinegar is thin and runny. It's not what you would even consider a sauce. And I think I ended up using about 5 teaspoons of vinegar, and I added that vinegar 1 teaspoon at a time until I was happy with the thickness I had. And I didn't take a picture here that I should have taken. I stuck one of my silicone spatulas in there and pulled it off, and it had a nice nappe, or it had a nice coating on the spatula. But yet this sauce is still thin enough that I can spoon it out and drizzle it on. That's where I wanted it to be. And that's what I have here. So I put that out in a different container. I put that in the refrigerator and I let that go overnight as well. And one thing I can say is the flavor of this sauce did develop nicely overnight. When I tasted this sauce at this point, it tasted mostly sweet and didn't taste, I couldn't, the garlic was a little faint in the background, but the next day that garlic stood up and made its presence known after being in there all night. So that came out nicely. So the next morning I got out and I fired up the Kamado Joe. I built a fire with some hardwood lump charcoal and some cherry wood for smoke. And I used the slow roller and I put the cooking grid on the higher level of the slow roller. And then I went ahead and set my Donair roll on a sheet pan that I have, a small sheet pan that's got a cooking rack where I can get smoke all the way around that thing. And I just put it on there. I could have put it directly on the grill, but I just figured it'd be easier to deal with this way than trying to take it off the grill. So here we are. This cook went. I was running the Joe at between 275 and 300 degrees Fahrenheit, and I put my temperature probe in it, and I wanted to pull this guy off when it hit about 155 to 157. I didn't want to let it go all the way to 165 because I knew I'd get a little carryover, and I was only really critical about, I wanted to get it up to at least 160. So this is what I had at that point. So I took it off and I wrapped it up in foil and I let it rest for about 30 or 40 minutes before I sliced it. And this is what you have. You can look at this and see that it's dense. It's not light and airy, and it's dense because of the way we prep that meat. I've got a nice smoke ring all the way around this guy, and I can't begin to describe the flavor that this Donair meat has based on the seasonings I put in there. It was delicious. So the process here is you serve this on a pita. I took a couple of pitas and wrapped them in foil and tossed them on the grill for about 10 or 11 minutes to let them get nice and warm. And then I layered several pieces of that sliced meat on there. And other guys, the best I could figure out in Canada, the traditional way to serve this is with coarsely diced onion and coarsely diced tomato. And then you drizzle that sweet garlic Donair sauce on top of this and eat it like a pita. And that's what we have here. I was really impressed with the flavor. Jeff, have you ever had this?
I have not had that. I've had gyros.
Okay, well, the Euros don't have this Donair sauce. Other than that, they're similar. The tzatziki sauce is a popular sauce that goes on them, and it's not really anything like this. That tzatziki sauce is up. I gotta get Tanya back in here for a second. Let's Tanya, what's the base of the tzatziki sauce made from?
Usually you're using like Greek yogurt and you got the dill.
Yogurt. Okay, that's what it was.
Oh, that's what I used to mine.
It's the Greek yogurt that's not really sweet. It's not going to be as sweet as this. So,
Greek yogurt.
yeah, Andrew, I would like to know your opinion. Andrew's Canadian, and Andrew's one of the reasons I made this. I decided to do this week because he did a post on one. He posted. I can't remember if it was in my Man Cave Meals group or if it was somewhere else. Andrew posted about Donair. He actually posted a recipe. I looked at the recipe, but I didn't go with his recipe on this one. But I would like to know, Andrew, your opinion if I've done any amount of justice here to this process. Has what I've done here, would it be appreciated in any way by a Nova Scotian? I was happy with it. It was good. And one of the comments I made at the end of my video when I was talking about this is a precursor. I want to do a man cave Donair, which is going to be the process is going to be the same, but the ingredients and the flavor profile are going to be a little different. I'm going to do this. Yeah, okay. A couple of different spices, but it varies at every shop. I agree. And Andrew, I saw a good bit of variation in the spices used from just the 8 or 10 videos I watched. And yeah, some of the people I saw put cayenne pepper in it. And so I want to bring some of that extra spice to this, but I think I want to do it through the sauce rather than through the meat. So we'll get to that. Tanya didn't think she'd like the sweet sauce. And Tanya, I still have some of the sweet sauce if you're interested in tasting it. I haven't gotten rid of what I have yet, but that sauce, I only expect that sauce is going to be good for a couple of days. I don't think it's something I want to keep very long.
I just don't think I can get around it. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm on board with the garlic. Yeah. I like garlic. That sweetened condensed milk. Holy shit. Pardon my language, y'all. It may be delicious, but just the thoughts of how.
Yeah, but his isn't with sweetened condensed milk. His is with
Yes.
evaporated, so it's not.
No, but it's got a lot of sugar in it. I don't
True.
think there would be a lot of flavor difference between what I did and using sweetened condensed milk. I think they would be very close. And Anurag, I have not tried Toom or Taum or however that's pronounced. I looked that up when you mentioned it the other day, and it's a good bit different from this. And Andrew, I'd love to come up. I noticed when I was researching this, it seems that Donair is served in a lot of pizza shops. It's like pizza and Donair are things that in that area they go together. You can go to a pizza shop and they'll have this, or a lot of them in Eastern Canada will have that. So,
yeah, I'm still wanting to make my Nova Scotia trip. It got canceled
Tanya,
3 times.
we need to go to Peggy's Cove sometime. That'd be a nice trip.
Yeah, we do. We definitely do.
So,
okay, no, stop the presses. Andrew, explain to me what garlic fingers are.
yeah, that's another thing that came along with this.
What is a garlic finger? Curious minds want to know.
Tanya, the garlic fingers are a lot like the garlic knots that we get locally. They're the same sort of thing.
Just notice that Anurag is with me today on this.
Well, that's fine if he's with you. If he's tasted it, I don't think it can have a fair shake unless you taste it.
Okay, so I'm down for the garlic fingers without a doubt.
Yeah, what he's saying, yes. Tanya, is they dip garlic fingers in this Donair sauce.
Well, there are people that dip their pizza in ranch, and you know, I guess follow your bliss. Holy crap! No, I don't want to go there. Although I will dip my pizza in beer cheese.
Yeah, and we're going to be doing some of that soon too, because I've got another thing, and Russ is with us tonight. Russ has got a comment there.
And he's right here. He's thinking about ice cream. When I think sweetened condensed milk, I think fudge.
Fudge. Well, my original recipe uses sweetened condensed milk. So, in fact, my original fudge recipe is only sweetened condensed milk and chocolate, and a little splash of whatever spirit I'm going to throw in there with it. So Andrew says his wife won't eat the sauce either, Tanya. So it must be a love it or hate it thing. When I was researching Donair, I think a lot of the Eastern Canadians were a lot like you, Tanya, because what happened is some Greek showed up there and tried to introduce them to the gyro, and they weren't into the lamb. They couldn't get beyond the lamb, so they came up with their own version of this thing. And
yeah, I mean the rest of it looks good. That sauce is just sketchy.
It's pretty good. I enjoyed it. And also Tanya does not like raw onions, so Tanya would not get by that either. I'd have to work that out, but I'm gonna do a man cave Donair.
Do some pickled onions for.
Oh man, my pickled onions would be aces on that. I guarantee.
Telling you.
The same pickled onions that I use on my pulled pork sandwiches. And in fact, I've got some of those in the fridge. And Tanya, have you tried my you like my pickled onions?
I have actually not tried your pickled onions.
You haven't? Okay, well she might not then. So all right.
I'm just like.
Yep. Okay. Tanya, I wanted you're holding a comment for me from Al. Al Lunacy.
2 comments. So let's look at Al first.
Okay, Al, I hope he's still with us.
Yeah.
I met Al. Al I met him in the Camp Chef pellet grills, the Camp Chef pellet grills group on Facebook, and he did a demo video. You know how, Jeff, some of these pellet grill people do the biscuit test on their pellet grills to look for hot spots. He had done one of those he's got the 36-inch Camp Chef Woodwind Pro. You know, I'm looking at that Woodwind Pro. And he did the biscuit test on the 36-inch, and that's where I met him in there. And he's got a YouTube channel, guys, and if you look at it here, that Al Lunacy Queuing, if you look for that on YouTube, you'll find him. And uh, Al, if you're still with us, the reason I'm in that group, I don't have the Camp Chef yet, but I'm getting ready to get one. I'm planning on bringing I want the 24-inch version of that. I've been on a quest. I wanted to bring another sub $1,000 pellet grill to my deck. So I feel like I need another grill. I need to be cooking more on a grill that costs less money than the pellet grills that I have here now. But the one I've got, the sub $1,000 one that I have now, is not viable. I'm going to be moving it right on out of here. And I had decided, I had gotten it down to a battle between the RecTech 590 and the Camp Chef Woodwind 24, not the Pro, but the Woodwind, because both of those grills were $8.99. And I kept looking at the Pro, and I kept saying, no, I don't want to get the Pro because it's $11.99. It's more money. It's above what I had spent or had set for a cat. But I think after the research I've done, I think I'm gonna have to bump my cap to 1,200 instead of 1,000, and I'm gonna bring that 24-inch Woodwind in here. And the reason I think I'm going to bring that grill in here is because I think that grill has a feature that's going to be a game changer for pellet grills. Jeff will tell you, I've been a big advocate of, I'm not going to say I'm an advocate of the grill, but I'm a big advocate of the Masterbuilt Gravity series, not because it's a great quality grill, but the flavor of the food that comes off of that grill is superior to everything else I've cooked on. And I truly believe that I'm going to be able to duplicate that on that Camp Chef Woodwind Pro, because that Camp Chef Woodwind Pro has this firebox that you can pull out. You can put wood chunks in it and push it back in there and open the base of it where this wood chunk holder is exposed to the fire pot. You can put charcoal in it if you want to bring that briquette charcoal flavor to your cook. And I really do believe that this grill has an innovation that I think could be a game changer. I can't speak firsthand on it as to whether or not it really will, but from some of the results I've seen, some of the people that have this and some of the people that have published content on YouTube about this thing already have me willing to give it a try. And another advantage I think that the Camp Chef Woodwind has is it's upgradable. There's a side table upgrade for the Camp Chef Woodwind and the Woodwind Pro that it basically brings a 30,000 BTU propane burner to the right-hand shelf. And there's a set of accessories that you can use on top of that propane burner. You can use it as a stove by itself with that 30K BTU burner. There's a cast iron griddle piece that you can have for it. And there's a grill box that you can have for it where you can do your it's got a searing station built in when you buy that accessory with it. The pellet grills, the thing that pellet grills are weak at, in my opinion, is searing. And the Camp Chef has the ability, you can move you can pull this bar and open up your grilling grate to the fire pot, which is a solution, but it's not a solution that I like. I had a similar solution working like that on the Yoder when I had the Yoder 640. And while it works, I don't like the mess that it makes in the bottom of the grill. I would much rather have the searing solution. My opinion is the best searing solution is that side, they call it the Sidekick upgrade. The best searing solution, in my opinion, is going to be that Sidekick with the cast iron griddle. You know, if you want to use your pellet grill to do the low and slow portion of a reverse sear, and then slap whatever you're reverse searing on that cast iron that hot cast iron to finish it off. I think that's a really cool solution. I don't remember what the price is. I'm wanting to say it's $2.99 or maybe even $3.99 for that full blown upgrade. There's several levels of it that you can buy, but the fact that it's upgradable, the fact that it has that option has got me impressed. It got me excited about bringing one up here. So I'm trying to make some space for it. So we'll see. I'm not there yet. I've got to get some stuff off the deck before I have room to bring that here. So I don't know if Al's still with us or not. I hope he was able to stick around. Chris says he uses the Pit Boss pellet and it does well searing. Yeah, the slide. Chris, this thing has the same sort of setup, but how do you feel about the drippings and whatnot that are going down into your fire pot and into the base of your grill when you do that? How much time are you spending cleaning that up when you're done? Because I think that that would need to be done after each cook, because you would run the risk of any kind of accumulation like that building up in the bottom of your grill. You're running the risk of a grease fire down there, even on a low and slow cook with the exposed fire pot. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. So, all right. Yeah, it makes a mess. I'm sure it does. And I noted that was the first thing I noticed about my Yoder YS640 when I did it with their two-piece heat shield. I didn't like that mess, and I would rather not do my searing that way. And I like the searing option that's available on that sidekick from the Camp Chef. And one of the things I've done here in the past is I'm fortunate enough to have more than one grill, and I'll do my low and slow portion of a reverse sear on one grill and do the sear on another. And Chris says you only get a 10 by 10 area to sear, so that's a pretty decent size area, but it's I guess it depends on how many you're cooking for as to whether it's viable or not. Even if you're using the griddle option on that thing, it's not going to be a whole lot bigger than that. It may be, I don't know what the size of that griddle is, but the reverse sear, it doesn't take long. If you've got a hot surface, we're talking 30 or 45 seconds is all you need to complete a reverse sear. It's not like you're having to do several minutes on each side. All right. Tanya Andrews said he's got us a recipe to look at.
I know. I started to bring it up so I can say thank you, Andrew. Yeah. I'll definitely check that out. That sounds delicious.
We'll do some. Tanya, that's a real good thing to do with leftover pizza dough, which I happen to have some of at the moment.
Oh, well, good. And earlier, John, before we got to the question, we had moved on. But George was asking about how all the bourbons that you were talking about earlier compared to Maker's.
I'm assuming he's talking about Maker's Mark. This Larceny, I like the Larceny a little better than the Maker's Mark, but I'm going to tell you also that I'm not good enough at this to verbalize what it is I like about the Larceny better than the Maker's Mark. They're priced about the same. The Maker's Mark may be a couple dollars less a bottle. My suggestion to you is, I'm guessing you've tried the Maker's already and haven't tried the Larceny. So Maker's Mark is available at most liquor stores in taster size bottles, but I don't think the Larceny is. Mm-hmm. I think you'll have to buy the Larceny bottle to figure that out. I don't know how to describe it. It's a smoother flavor. It's a little smoother. It's got a little less alcohol bite, and it's got a sweeter back end than the Maker's Mark does.
I'm personally not a fan of Maker's Mark.
Yeah, Jeff doesn't like Maker's. No. One of the things, Maker's, I've made some vanilla. I made bourbon vanilla with Maker's Mark, and that came out really good. So I took a fifth of Maker's Mark, a 750 ml bottle, and dropped 25 vanilla beans in it. So, yeah, and George, I think if you're mixing, I don't think it matters as much. There's there's a huge variety of bourbons and whiskeys that people use to make old fashions with, and I think the traditional, if you really want to get hardcore about it, the traditional old fashions are made with rye whiskey instead of your typical sweeter bourbons. But that's just from a little bit of experience I know, and I don't know how accurate that is, but uh, Anurag doesn't like Maker's Mark. He should like Maker's Mark because it's less than $40 a bottle. It's Anurag can afford Maker's Mark. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, but he doesn't like it.
I know he doesn't like it.
Well, that's because he wants to spend that other money on good cheese and good
Yes, no, Anurag has opened some doors for Tanya and I in the cheese world that I'm really appreciative of. That Robiola is quite sublime in the cheese game. So uh, I appreciate that. It's really good stuff. So he's a value buyer. I hear you. Yeah, Anurag and I went round and round earlier this week or last week. He was talking about, I don't remember. Oh, I was talking about the Elijah Craig 18-year-old, the $150 price tag on that bottle, and he said it's not worth it. So I was trying to lure him into a debate about it, and I didn't really get where I wanted to go with him. It's Jeff. It's one of these situations where, when I love the conversation of is it worth it? That's a conversation I love to get in because
Yep.
worth is relative. Worth doesn't mean the same thing to me as it means to you, and it may mean the same thing to me as it does to you on certain subjects. When we talk about worth, I know Anurag's not completely honest when he says he's a value buyer because he's got a Kamado Joe.
That's right.
Value buyer is not a real value buyer is not going to
Would have
spend
an
that much.
acorn.
Maybe not even an acorn. They may be you can do better than the acorn. Even you can get a Weber kettle, and I started on the Weber kettle, and the only reason I stepped foot into the Kamado world is because I ran into a day that was too cold and too windy for me to cook a pizza on the Weber kettle. That's what moved me into the Kamado world.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think the kettles are great until you open them. Once you open them,
I was going to cook a pizza on my Weber kettle, and it was in February. It was a cold day in February, and it was windy, and I couldn't get the pizza to even cook. I lost so much heat when I opened the lid to put it on there that it was just a ruined cook. And at that point, I told Tanya, I said, I'm going to buy a big green egg.
He did.
I did, and I saved up the money to buy the big green egg, and I was about ready to go buy it. And Tanya and I were in Lowe's one night, and I saw this acorn. And I looked at that thing. I said, Tanya, that's a lot like a big green egg. It's just not ceramic. It's metal, and it's $300 instead of $1,000. So,
that's our Anurag.
So okay, well, whatever.
He is a value buyer.
So I bought the acorn. I talked to Tanya. I didn't buy it when I first saw it. I said I want to go home and think about that. And
which surprised me. I have to tell you,
yeah,
the whole thing surprised me.
She's surprised that I didn't buy it right there on the spot. I wanted to go think about it. And let me tell you what happened. I went home. I said, I'm going to look that thing up on YouTube and see what people are saying about it. And this was a brand new grill at the time, and there were no videos on YouTube about it. And I had already been making some YouTube videos. I said, that is what pushed me more to go buy that grill than the fact that I wanted it more than a big green egg. And I told Tanya, I said, if I buy it and don't like it, I'm only out of this much money, and I can still go back and buy the big green egg. So I bought it. I started making videos on it, and that's what got my YouTube channel launched. Apparently, there were a lot of other people looking for video content on that grill, and I was the only person on YouTube making any content on it. And I cooked hard on that grill for about 6 months. I put that grill through its paces, and at that point, I decided I still wanted a ceramic Kamado. And but in that period of time, I learned who Kamado Joe was, and I realized that Big Green Egg wasn't the only player in the market. And at that time, the only players in the market were Kamado Joe, Big Green Egg, and Primo. I don't recall seeing any of these other ceramic Kamados at that point, but I bought it.
I bought 2 Kamados in a week.
Yeah.
When I figured out the pit boss was a piece of junk, I bought the Kamado Big Joe.
So, but yeah, I was cooking on Weber's before I bought the Kamado. There's very little you can't do on a Weber, but the thing about the Weber is the weather conditions can wreak havoc with you. If it's cold, there's certain things you're not going to be able to pull off. And I don't think a Weber kettle is a proper tool for cooking a pizza. I should have just planned to cook that pizza in the oven to begin with. There are certain things that a Weber's just not cut out for. Now there's an add-on. There's a kettle. I think Weber makes a pizza oven attachment for these kettles, and it would have worked. It would have solved my problems. In this day and time, I may still have been able to get away with a Weber, but I have a new Weber out here. You're going to be seeing more of it. That 26-inch kettle. That thing's pretty nice. So I'm going to be doing some more cooking on that. All right. Best steak you'll ever have is on a Weber kettle, Richard says. So Tanya might agree with you on that. When I bought my first Weber kettle, I had a gas grill over here, and after I cooked steaks for Tanya on that Weber, she said she didn't care if I ever cooked on that gas grill again.
Well, I've never been a big gas grill fan. I just don't think there's any taste. I mean, if you're going to grill, I don't know. Maybe I have just unrealistic expectations, but if you're going to grill and you're going to tell me something's grilled, then I want to taste like it's grilled. I want that grilled taste.
Gas grills don't bring any flavor through the cooking process. Typically, if you've got a really dirty gas grill, it might.
Yeah, Cindy. Hi, Batchies.
Yeah. But speaking of that, that hibachi brings up something else I wanted to comment on about the Donair. You can make that into a kebab just as easily as you can do what I did with it and cooking it in a log. You can take that meat and roll it around a skewer and cook it over an open flame, and then pull it off and then serve it the same way I did it here. And you'll see that a lot. And a lot of these Donair shops cook these things. They cook this big mass of meat on a vertical spit. It's got an infrared burner on one side of it, and they cook it. And as it gets done, they shave it off the outside and build these pitas with it. And
that was the one thing I didn't see that you did. When you cut yours, you didn't throw it in a pan and sear it. You just threw it on your pita.
I did, and some of the videos I watched did it that way. Some of them would shave it off, throw it in the pan, or slice it the way I did. I sliced mine the way I sliced it for a reason, because I wanted some of that outside edge on every piece, because I think that was an important. And that's another thing. None of the videos I watched, none of them smoked their meat. It was all done. Everybody did it in the oven. Yeah, none of the Donair videos I watched were smoked. So that in itself was something different. So anyway, guys,
I'm thinking about trying that, John, and using that grill mat that I've got, that silicone grill mat.
Yeah.
Wrapping it in that, tying it, and then putting it on the spit to make sure that it doesn't fall off.
Right.
And letting it go on the spit for a while.
Well, another thing I saw, somebody took that meat and spread it all out real thin in a sheet pan and put it in the oven and cooked it quickly, where it was done in 15 minutes, or 20 minutes. So Andrew said he was the first one found to do it on a Kamado Joe. That's good. That I think the smoked element, that smokiness from that meat and from cooking it on the grill is worth it. It's worth the difference. And like I said, these Canadians that I saw in the videos that I watched raw oven cookers. I don't think I came across one. I probably should have searched YouTube for smoked Donair. I didn't do that, and I might have found something. So, okay, yeah, Andrew, I appreciate the inspiration to do that. That did come from Andrew here, and we've talked about it for a while. I've just never gotten around to doing it. So it was good. I'm going to do it again, but the next time you see me do that, it's going to be that same process, but it's going to be a totally different flavor profile. I haven't figured out exactly what I'm going to do, whether it's going to be beef or pork. It's going to be one or the other, and we'll figure that out
Both.
when the time comes. No, it won't be both. I'll have to do
Spam.
spam. That would be good too. So
Yeah, it would be.
yeah, I'm saving that can of spam I got for something special.
Telling you.
Oh, throw me a can of spam on the rotisserie.
No, I've got a spam project. I'm going to do a spam project.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
Oh, spam. How we love you. Yeah. And all of a sudden, John, every time you said Canadian, I have to tell you, all I can think about right now is poutine. Daggone, I want some poutine.
Well, we'll do that too then. Nah, Anurag, I'm not going to talk about that because Tanya gave me a recipe that she says this is what I want for dinner tonight, and it was a pork and green bean Asian dish. It was good. The flavor was good, but the texture was all wrong. I'm gonna take that recipe and turn it into something good, and then I'll talk about it. It needs help.
Nice and spicy. It set my sinuses off. It's a great dish when you eat it, and all of a sudden your sinuses are just like free and clear.
Do you like wasabi, Tanya?
Huh?
There were no
beans. Do you like wasabi?
I'm going to be honest with you. I've used wasabi a little bit, like sometimes when doing sushi.
You talk about making your sinuses clear, wasabi.
But yeah, I've never just done it clear on its own.
Yeah. Anurag, that was ground pork. It was ground pork, and there were no beans in that dish. Well, I guess the green beans were beans, so I guess
it was really good.
I'm thinking something else. Sorry, green beans. So yeah, I'm going to redo that, and the sauce is where that recipe failed. So spam sushi rolls.
So look, I would be down with the spam sushi rolls.
Spam sushi rolls.
Yeah.
I've seen those. They look really cute.
Let's do some spam nigiri. Where it's just
talking about nice little. That's what they are. It's the nigiri. You put it on top. You got the little.
Let's do that and do it. And raw. Tanya might even eat spam raw. Tanya, would you eat spam raw?
No.
Because it's already cooked.
I was gonna say, what do you mean raw? It's already cooked.
I know it's already cooked, but this is what. Let me tell you how spam is perfected. It's perfected.
Fried.
It's fried.
Yeah.
Fried and throw an egg on top of it.
Fried, and then like my absolute favorite way to have spam is fried, and then my mom used to take barbecue sauce and just put it over it till the sauce got good and thick, and it just glazed that spam. Oh my Lord, it was fabulous. But no, if you'd fry that spam up and toss it on, in a nigiri style roll, and then serve it with some tamago, man, I'd be right there with that spam and eggs.
Tanya, think of this: take your grits, fry them. Put your grits down. Put some spam on top. Put a fried egg on top of that.
I've got a spam project I'm going to do, and
it's good.
You'll see it. You'll see it soon enough.
Don't let people lie to you. Spam is delicious. Yes, and for those of you Monty Python, spam, baked beans. Wasn't spam, and baked beans, something like that. Monty Python.
All right, guys, we got to wrap. And like I said, I'm not going to be here next week, so we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
One last question, John.
Eric, I don't know. I don't know. I can't buy ground lamb. Ground lamb is not available anywhere near me that I've never seen it. I've looked for it, and I'm not going to buy a whole leg
It
of
will
lamb.
break down like that. You put it in the mixer long enough, it will break down.
You know, John, I think Ingles had some ground lamb the other week.
I've never seen it. So I don't, and since nobody else on either side of my family will eat it, I don't worry about it. And Donair traditionally does not have lamb in it, as far as I can tell. So it's all beef. So
Donair is beef. Gyro's lamb, chicken, pork, beef.
Yeah.
Whatever you have.
Spam.
All right.
Spam.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.